I later on found out about Hajia. And it like I've always, been consistent about trying to find new things about her, learning new things about her. And, your documentary did just that. Like, there were so many parts of her life that I had, never known. And so, yeah, it's really a great pleasure. So to start with, you've been to her house, you've met her family, her daughter, people that were around her during her life, her associates. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What was that experience like for you?
Okay, so permit me to start from maybe a brief of what inspired me. Yeah, I was researching about Northern women who have done exploits. First of all, I think the research was from Barmani Choge. I was interested in her being the originator of twerking. Actually, another woman started twerking on TV. Yes, so I saw a daredevil woman who was simply a performer and didn't care about anything else. Like they say, they would always say the North is conservative, but you and I know that conservatism is so-called because it only has to do with the children of the poor. So when I saw Barmani, and I remembered then when she'll be twerking on TV and our parents will close our eyes and say, "Kushigadagachiki," and they will off the TV. I wanted to know more about her, but somehow that led me to another daredevil Northern woman, Gambo Soaba. This time around, being a performer aside, this is a woman who made major contribution in the Nigerian political space. And that was a serious conversation that was never had. And so I delved into that. Now, answering your question, I took a journey to Zaria, her hometown. And first of all, if you observed in the documentary, there is duplex opposite to a regular face me and face you house. The duplex was where she was born. It was a hot house, a clay house, mud house, sorry. And she renovated that place as the place of their ancestry. But she couldn't live there because she had to cater for a lot of people. So what she had to do was to build a regular face me, I face you with lots of rooms so she could accommodate other people. And that was where she lived till she died. So Sawaba's house, if you notice, was written across that face me, I face you, not the duplex. That was the symbol for me, first, that I noticed of a woman who gave it all for the freedom of others.
Can you tell us more about her change of name from Hajara Amate to Hajia Gambo Sawaba? I know we've peeked into it, but it would be nice to hear about it from you.
Well, I think picking up from one of the interviewees, the author of her book, he said she didn't have a stable marriage because she was married to the struggle. And what's that struggle? To liberate Northern women. Gambo's context, I would say, if not because of Gambo, till today, me and you would not have been able to vote or be voted for. She fought for that. And that's, yes, and that was granted in 1976. It's a reason why you and I are seated here. a lot of us. Is the reason why, let's say, Amina Mohammed is at the UN House today because of the struggles and fight of Gambo Sawaba. So she didn't care about the Hajara to Amati. What was that going to do for her anyways? Sawaba was the name. And I'm sure you know the meaning of Sawaba is freedom. So she took the name and she owned the name.
I look at Hajia's life and her experiences, and
Are you Hausani?
oh, sorry. So I look at her life and her experiences, and it's deeply intertwined with Nigeria's political history, and particularly northern Nigeria. So from colonialism to independence to the military era to, to how all of that has shaped our society today. So I see the depth of her influence. But do you think there's that adequate representation of who Hajia was, what she did, what she has inspired? Do you see that referenced in our society today? Is it referenced enough? Is it sufficient that a lot of us would never have heard of her name if, we had grown in different circumstances, right? So what do you think about that in, literature, pop culture, just like mainstreamed in society?
Sorry, can you sum that up again?
Sorry. So her life, she's lived a very important life. She's left an enduring legacy, particularly in northern Nigeria. But somehow, she's not mainstream. A lot of people have never heard about her, right? And her representation in the media, what is her representation like? Let me just put that to you.
Well, there is none. Gambo Sawaba is almost nowhere to be found. And her legacies are almost lost. So I remember when we were kids, they would, this is, whether we like it or not, we're dealing with patriarchy every day. They will always say that the only thing we used to know about Fumilayo Kuti was the fact that she was the first woman to drive a car. And we didn't know that this woman was one of the strong lead for women's rights, political rights in Nigeria. A woman who led one of the most fundamental protests. The irony is that the moment you just type Gambo Sawaba on your Google search, she appears. Her story is there. A lot of international media, have done something about her. But in the pop culture, you say, where is Gambo Sawaba? And when you talk about women's representation in politics, for instance, in House of Reps, in Senate, how many women have become governors? It's almost like the fight that Gambo Sawaba had done. I'm sorry to say, but I think that northern women have to reconsider, their involvement generally in politics. Because if a woman could give up her womb, her marriage, her life, for a fight that we northern women should have franchise to vote, then indeed is a valid question. Where is Gambo Sawaba in us?
So you look at, I want to talk about political activism. So you look at political activism today, right? Particularly in the North, and especially amongst women. And what you see is that we're largely pacified, right? Even the Nigerian women's movement, and I've been racking my brain, when I watched the documentary first and now, who rose up like in place of Hajiya Gambo, and what happened to our society that we don't have mothers like Hajiya. So, I mean, through your research, what were you able to find out about that?
When you listen to, especially the submission from Baba Tanko Akase, this is somebody that was a boy when the British came, and he was part of the entire story. He tried to give a brief of what the Northern society was like. It's like, there's always been a history of subjugation, and then now when it comes to the place of there's always this between the Sarakuna and the Talakawa. Even the party, then you could see how the Sarakuna were able to form the NPC, strictly Saradauna, Tafawalewa, Saad Zungur, and the rest of them. But like I would say like the current radicals, maybe in NSAS or people advocating for the End Bad Governance movement, were the NAPU of then. So you can imagine that 60 years ago, radicals were present in the North, asking for justice, asking for freedom, and women were at the forefront of that movement. It wasn't just Gambo Soaba. There was Binta Misisi, there was Hajia Binta. There were really core, strong northern women that fought, that were at the forefront of fighting for the Talakawas, that were oppressed by the Sarakuna. But it's like history repeating itself, where northern women, I would say, have probably accepted Gambo didn't want us to be second-class citizens. That was why, one of the reasons she was fighting. But I was opportune to also interview some on another project, Northern Women in Politics. When you ask somebody like Binta Garba Masi, women, we need to understand that this is a fight and that nobody is going to give it to you. They would tell you that, oh, the reason why I've retired, oh, I can't do this is because men call meetings at night. Of course they will, because they don't want you as a woman to be there. Gamba Sawaba would go.
Yeah.
She would go. She went to prison 16 times. She didn't mind until that right was achieved. So if you ask me today, I think I should ask you back, where is the Gamba Sawaba in us? I ask again.
Maybe we'll throw it back there. So earlier in the documentary, I wanted to ask about the Sawaba Declaration, if you could just give us a bit of history about that.
Well, the Sawaba Declaration was like the NSAS movement that broke out in 2020. The Northern Radicals, according to the documentary, they went as far as organizing a group called Emma Haukata, because they were ready. Suka ce sukan je Ramazagi har Gusau, har Zamfara, har Maiduguri. Idan aka zage su, za su shiga mota da kudinsu su tafi Ramazagi. Idan aka ci musu mutunci a Zaria, 'yan Kano, 'yan Jigawa, 'yan Sokoto duk za a tashi a zo a shigo Zaria a zo Ramazagi.
So, and
now, yes, Enepu. So the Sawaba declaration is a declaration of war on those who were oppressing us. And that's the emirs, the elites. And if you look at the northern society today, it's still a construct of the elite and the talakawa. Duk wanda ya fito daga fada a yau, gaba ɗaya waɗanda suke daga zuri'an sarauta, gaba ɗayansu idan ta sa riga ta buɗe baya babu mai magana. Amma idan Rahama Sadau ta sa ta buɗe baya, gaba ɗaya social media za a taru, northern Twitter, a ci mata mutunci. So, you see, I think that we are still not very ready. Those radicals fought. They were killed. They were followed to their houses and slaughtered like chickens, the Nepo radicals. Some of them, because of that Sawaba declaration of war against injustice, had to flee. Is a reason for their migration till today. Some are in Mali, some in Niger, some they can never come back home. Their ancestry remain in the foreign land. But they had to do it for a better northern society. But the question is the North better than it was 60 years ago? Gamba Sawaba, Aminu Kano, we are talking about oppression. We're talking about educating the common man, the Talakawa. Yeah. But is the North safe?
So before we, I guess, go to Q&A and comments, I have just one final question for you. I understand this isn't the final cut. There are changes or additions you're going to make to the documentary. Can you tell us about that?
For Korea, I told you that in confidence.
Oh shit!
People would come for the launching, the official launch of the final cut of this film, which some of the changes we have made. For me, it was more. This story was like a prophecy, and I think we have seen some things unfold in the process of making the film, like the NSAS protests. So what you're going to
have it in their minds?
Well, no, but we will definitely ensure that we announce that through HIBAV and every other northern platform that is available.
All right. Thank you so much. Are we taking comments, questions, and answers? Okay.
Hello, thank you very much. I loved your documentary, right? Because growing up in the North, Gambo Sawaba is actually a household name. For a lot of us, when we grew up, it's just like saying, when you go out, they always tell you, Gaigidan Gambo Sawaba. And when you're watching NTA, then we used to watch NTA and they have interviews with Gambo Sawaba. And we see her talk and we see her cry and we see her talk about her life and what she went through. So I think what we are having right now is exactly what's happening. Our stories are glossed over because they are not Nigerian stories. Gamba Sawaba, we all know of Ransom Kuti, but we don't know Gamba Sawaba because Gamba Sawaba is from Arewa, and that is the main reason. Ado Gwanja is more popular than Rema, but you hear Rema, you don't hear Ado. So that for me, it irks me a lot because it's a form of hypocrisy when you're just pushed to one side and you're only brought up when a narrative wants to be filled. You know, Gamba Sawaba deserves more than just a mention in what do you call that thing that passes?
Footnote.
A footnote in Nigerian history. And I liked your documentary, quite all right. But I don't know if it was a choice for you not to talk about the other northern women that also supported Gamba Sawaba during her own struggles. You know, and you did not also talk about the Jamia Mata Arewa that she set up, and it was a huge movement. And at that time where women were not supposed to talk, women were not supposed to be seen, those women were seen, were heard, and were making waves. So I think it will be an important addition to your documentary if you talk about this, You know, you talked about the contribution of Ransom Kuti to Gambo Sawaba's struggle. So I believe the other side of the coin, which you can help the not to say, is these are the other women too. It wasn't Gambo Sawaba. Yes, she was unique, but even then, there were women that were as strong as her, that were supporting her in that struggle. It would be very nice. There's also another thing. When the coup was talked about, when Sarkodie was killed, I don't know if it was a choice for you to gloss over that too, because I believe a lot of things like that happen. When other people are talking about the history of Nigeria, they try to be very clear on who killed who and who did what. It is from the north that are seen to have done it. But then that conversation is also lost over. We have a lot of people here who don't know what happened, because history was taken out of our schools, so they don't know that history. And we still hurt from that. And we need to move over it, and it is only when we have such conversations. And your documentary is a great platform to start such conversations. Thank you very much.
Can we get just one last question or comment?
Okay. Can I go on? Okay, good. So I have to commend you sincerely. This is superb. We need this kind of stories. We need to tell our stories. All over the world, these are stories that are not heard. And so I congratulate you, and I hope and I pray that you succeed on this. But I don't know if I'm allowed to make a little critique. Sure. Yeah, because I'm a teacher, so I do that a lot. Now, I see two things that I'm a bit worried about. First, there's a depiction of this hijabi woman with a hand, which is fast becoming a symbol of resistance in northern Nigeria. That is a little bit troublesome for me, because the hijabi symbol itself is, it has a lot of its own baggage on its own, and then bringing it to represent the struggle of northern Nigerian women, it's a bit, for me, it waters down actually the strength or the struggle of Gambo Sawaba. So you might want to consider that. And secondly, when you show women, when the documentary shows women where Gambo Sawaba is talking to them and it's talking about oppression, and suddenly we see women with niqab again and hijab. This, I think, is stereotypical. All over the world, whenever women that are oppressed are shown, they are shown with this niqab and hijab. When Gambo Sawaba, the era of Gambo Sawaba, there was no hijab or niqab. So you may want to consider that. I didn't even wear hijab when I was going to school. This is just something very recent. So you may want to consider that. And yeah, just those two.
Okay. Thank you so much for your comments. I feel like hugging you, woman to woman. It really means a lot that women were watching and paying attention. And I thank you for your feedback. About the hijab, yes, I know. I think we were very. Let me start with you about issues around story plotting and story themes. You talked about if we could have opportunity to also talk about other women that have made contributions and all that. But I would say for us, we had a story, we had a central plot, and a central character to focus on, and that central story was the story of Gambo Sawaba, Radical Sawaba. And so there were other plots that linked up to the major plot of the story, which is her. But if we had gone out to expand the plot, then maybe we would be talking about series. Okay, we had a duration for this for a feature. And we needed to focus on the central plot, to only bring plots that were necessary to tie the knot of the central plot. I don't know if that is understandable, but I think it's issue of plotting. And we would not deviate from the major theme that we had, which is the radicalism of a feminist. Thank you, if I have answered you. And then coming to the representation of hijab as, you know, a stereotypical symbol. I remember when you also mentioned that when you were kids, I think I had that from like 6, 7 people in their 50s, 60s. Oh, we used to see Gambo Saba narrate her story on TV. But the question is, there is a bigger issue that we have: archiving and documentation. I have gone around all the NTA stations in this country looking for those clips, those footages. We could find none. They said the first NTA was NTA Kaduna. I spent 2 weeks in Kaduna. I was referred to one old Baba Buba that used to go and pack this VHS video when it's raining, and NTA people will just throw it in the rain. He will pack them and come and store it because he was passionate about history. Baba managed to supply me with it. He said, yes, I used to have it, but I don't anymore. I went to NTA Sokoto, NTA Kano. Those were even later NTA. In fact, they sent me to NTA Ibadan because they said it was one of the oldest NTA. Somebody said, oh no, I watched her on NTA Jaws before granting interview in the 70s. I went there. Those there bako bags of baggages and trash, dusty stuff. We sat down, we looked for. We couldn't. We couldn't. So if Gambo Saba was a phenomenon, the question is, why did we not have a footage of Gambo Saba archived, documented somewhere? I think it's a challenge to us.
All right.
And yes, so about hijabi, you know, usually when you are making a film, usually there are creatives gather to, you know, to not just be objective about stories or plots, but also to be what? To be subjective. Being objective in filmmaking, for us, is not enough. Also being subjective, where you want to direct people's eyes to what you need them to feel, was one of the reasons why the creative team sat down to immortalize the NSAS symbol of Aisha Yusuf in a graphics format. It was not going back to that era. I agree with you. There was no hijab then. I remember I told you it took us a whole year of research going in and out of Zaria to understand and to be sure that our documentary document facts. But we will look into it because we have diverse audience, and I thank you for your feedback.
Thank you so much, Binwana. You've really done an incredible thing, and thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you to everyone here today that made comments. It's such a great pleasure. I am looking forward to the Netflix original movie on Gambo Sawaba.
Wow, okay,
you guys.
Okay, definitely so, inshallah. Thank you so much for your time, Fakria.
Round of applause for them, please. Thank you, Bin. Thank you, Fakria, for the wonderful moderation. Picture, please, on the stage. And we'll move straight into the next session. Before then, we're still on film, but this time we're just doing a panel on reimagining African cinema. We'll just play a short clip by one of the panelists, who unfortunately is not here, so we'll play a clip of their movie, which is like 3 minutes. Please go.
saboda yadda kuke zaune a nan wasu a raina suke ganin ku, wasu kuma daga kun musu magana sai su hau ku da fada, sai kaɗan daga cikinsu ne suke iya ɗaukan 10, 20, 50 su baku, kuma idan sun baku ma babu girmamawa a cikin kyautan da suka muku. Idan bara ma ya halatta ga wasunku fa ba su da wani dalili na yin bara, saboda Allah ya baku lafiya da ƙarfi da idanu da ƙafafuwa da hannaye, to me na kaskantar da kanku har ku zauna kuna jiran a yi muku. Muna jin labari a kudancin ƙasar nan masu bara ga baki ɗayansu 'yan arewa ne. Me yasa zukatan 'yan uwanmu suka mutu ne? A can fa da nakasassu da masu lafiya duk neman na kansu.
Kun ga malama dakata, mu musulmai ne, babu inda aka ce kan mi bara ko a ba mu fi sabilillah. Zaki zo ki ishe mu da bala'i, in ba za ki ba mu ba ki ƙara gaba.
Tabbas musulunci ya umarci da a bada sadaka ga talakawa ko nakasassu, ga waɗanda ba su iya kowace irin sana'a. Sa'annan kuma musulunci ne ya yi gargaɗi akan bara, sannan kuma ya ba da ƙwarin gwiwa akan dogaro da kai.
Kawo mana aya ko hadisi. Kun baro gidajen mazajenku kuna so ku shiga rigan malamai, a ina musulunci ya tsawatar?
A cikin hadisin Abdullahi bin Umar, Allah ya ƙara yarda da shi, inda ya kawo cewa manzon Allah tsira da amincin Allah su tabbata a gare shi yana cewa mutum zai kasance yana roƙo har sai ya zo ranar kiyama da babu nama a fuskar shi ko kaɗan. A wani hadisin manzon Allah yana cewa na rantse da wanda raina ke hannunsa, zai fi muku kyau ku je ku sari itace ku ɗaura a bayanku ku siyar da shi akan ku roƙi wanda zai baku ko kuma ya hana ku.
Ashe ma malama ce.
Yanzu kamar ni malama da bana gani, ya zan yi in je in yi itace in zo in siyar in ci abinci. Wannan bara da kuka ga muna yi dole ce ta samu.
A matsayinki na mai nakasa ido da kuma makamantan irin ku, haka ma wanda Allah ya jarabta da masifar gobara ko ambaliya, sannan da matafiyin da guzurinsa ya ƙare da kuma makamantansu. Amma dukkanin mai lafiya da zuciya, tabbas amfani da ƙarfi wajen nema ya fi masa alkhairi har a wajen Allah.
Yanzu ku duba waɗannan yaran, ku dube su inda kuke zama da su a wajen nan. A cikin yaran nan akwai 'yan shekara 12, amma dukansu ba wanda yake zuwa makaranta. Kun ɗaura su akan sana'an bara, kuna so su koya kuma su gada kuma su ci gaba da yi har bayan ranku kenan. Ina laifi, ku koya musu inda za su zarce walakanci da tsangwama, ku sama musu ilimin boko da na addini. Usman, ka raba musu takardar nan. A cikinku duk wanda ya yarda zai bar bara zai kama sana'a. A cikin wannan takarda akwai namban waya, akwai adireshi, za ku iya samu. Idan kuka zo ofishinmu za a ba ku fom ku cike, sannan za a ba ku jari ko kuma kayan sana'a, amma da sharaɗi za mu dinga bibiyan ku matukar mun ba ku jari domin ku yi sana'a, mu gane cewa kun cika alkawarin da kuka ɗauka na cewa za ku yi sana'a, za ku daina bara.
To, ni dama na jima da son daina wannan sana'a, in Allah da zan zo. Allah saka muku da alheri, mun gode.
Ni ina nan ba zan ansa ba inda zani.
A manyan mata na gane karatu shi ke ba da ɗan taro. A manyan mata na san haƙuri bai karewa gurin damo. A manyan mata na san kadara ba ta kara idan ta zo. A manyan mata na san tarbiyya ba a ba da ita aro. A manyan mata.
Hello. For the next panel, Reimagining African Cinema, I will invite back Binwana to join the panel. Binwana Gazwa, a round of applause for her, please. She's still with us. I think she's doing an interview, so can one of the volunteers please go get Binwana? She can do her interview after the next panel. So I'll go ahead and invite the moderator for this panel. Please round of applause for Hassana Maina. Hassana is a lawyer, writer, and gender consultant with a background in law and specialization in development. She has over 5 years of impactful work and volunteer experience in northern Nigeria. Hassana is the director of the Anti-Sexual Violence and Lead Support Initiative, ASVIOL Support Initiative, special assistant on SDGs to Atiku Abubakar, and managing director of Huma Landromat. Hassana Maina was in 2019 mentioned by the BBC Media Action as the top 5 women fighting for human rights in northern Nigeria. In 2020, she was the recipient of the Future Awards Africa Prize for Activism. In 2024, she was mentioned by the Leadership newspaper as one of the women redefining leadership in northern Nigeria. Welcome, Hassana. Please round of applause for Asabema Adaki as she joins the panel. Asabema Adaki also is another lawyer, an actress by practice. She has been recognized across the continent for her talent with a nomination as Best Actress by the African Movies Viewers' Choice Award, AMVCA, in 2022. Asabe is a tireless force and voice for the vulnerable groups in society, and she empowers young men and women in Kaduna State with skills to match their potential. Welcome, Asabe. And finally, before Bin joins, I will invite Dr. Carmen McCain to join the panel. Please round of applause from Dr. Carmen. She came specifically from the UK via Barcelona and Cairo and arrived yesterday and still made it to the opening ceremony. Thank you so much, Dr. Carmen. She's here? Okay. Dr. Carmen is a lecturer at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. If anybody follows her blog, she's one of the most prolific bloggers on Kannywood, specifically Hausa film and videos. Yesterday, we also saw her reenact her cameo with Ibro as Baturia and then Ibro. Finally, Binwana, I will invite you back to the panel. Thank you for indulging me for a back-to-back panel. If you can test our mic, I will hand over one of the mic to, okay.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So Sada said I should do an English panel, but I promise you I speak Hausa very fluently. Okay. Thank you so much for the attention you'd give us in the next 40 to 50 minutes. We're going to be talking about reimagining African cinema. And on my panel is a packed all-female panel I love. I have an academician, I have an actress, I have a filmmaker. So there are no better people to discuss this topic with than this incredible woman. So I think I'm just going to start with the academician, Doctor. When we talk about African cinema, what comes to your mind? What is the bounds of African cinema? Where does it start? Where does it stop?
Well, I think the sort of technology that made Nollywood and Kannywood possible is the most exciting thing. And I mean, now we have TikTok, so I don't know where you put that, but there's been a movement towards the democratization of being able to make films, so people can make films with their iPhones if they want now. I think the way it has been taught in at least the Western Academy, and also I think in Nigeria, was often African cinema was seen as Ousmane Sembène, a lot of the Francophone filmmakers who had a lot of funding from France. And so if you went to an international film festival, it was usually those Francophone films that you were seeing. And I think, of course, there's been a big change now. You see a lot more Nigerian films at film festivals. But I think the word cinema sometimes implies something that's shown on a screen and not as like on a large screen. And so I know Abdallah Uba Adamu, in his most recent writing, has said, I don't want to talk about Kannywood anymore because there are Hausa films being made in Ghana, in Niger, and so on. And so Kannywood very much focuses on Kano. So he wants to kind of rename everything Hausa cinema. And I think the people who watch it actually call it Fina Fina Hausa, right? So I don't know if that's a very organized way, but that's, I think, some of my thoughts when I hear that terminology.
Thank you very much for such an apt question. I think I'm going to move to Asabe as an actress. I would like to think around when you get a role to maybe act a movie and the way language transcends. So we have Kannywood in Kano, but then people speak Hausa in Niger and Ghana. Who are the people that you're like, who are your audience in your mind when you're acting? Do you think about the audience in Kano, Kaduna, or Ghana, Niger? Like, do you think about that?
Yes, I think about that. But however, my audience, whenever I'm thinking, I think global. Because the world is already global. You're here, you can watch people in China, like she said, on TikTok, on Facebook. You can watch from anywhere. So whenever I get a role and I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking global. I'm not thinking Kano, I'm not thinking local, I'm not thinking Nigeria, I'm thinking global because that is the dream. We want to tell our stories to the global stage, not just here.
So I'm going to move to the filmmaker here, and I think I'm going to pick it up from the question that was asked earlier. And I wanted you to talk about the pressure of representation, especially in a culture that is not very homogeneous. So if you represent a culture this way, other people would have a problem with it. If you represent a culture that way, other people would have a problem with it. And you talked about objectivity and subjectivity in filmmaking. So I wonder what you do with those pressure. Like, do they come when you make films? Because now we have even issues of representation around poverty porn, how Africans are depicted in movies, and the effect it has on us as a people, as a continent.
Let me say this. I think I said it earlier. If no matter the pressure, if you don't tell your story, somebody else will tell it, and whatever narrative they give you, you take it. I think it's what happened when the colonial masters came, because our ancestors were only having oral, medium of storytelling. There were no documentation. They came with a text, and they were able to document and said, this is who we are. And I think that's what has been. And so no matter the challenge or pressure, you got to tell your story anyways. And I think that one of the reasons I talked about the culture of oppression. It's like in the North, it's like a daily fight, for your identity. And that's why I always encourage for strong characters. Instead of projecting weak characters, instead of projecting women, for instance, as weak vessels or victims of rape or something, why not project characters like Gambo Sawaba, who are like the heroes, like you could call her Wonder Woman, of the American film. And so the identity, I do think that if you know the story, if you know your identity by itself, I do not think you feel pressure of telling the story of who you are.
Thank you so much for such an apt response. I'm going to get back to you, Doctor. And I would, as someone that looks at it from a point of view of research, you talked about funding as part of the problems that is facing, the Kannywood, African cinema as a whole. I would like to maybe just talk around maybe.
So I think historically the philosophy of francophonie, right? The French colonialism. The British just wanted to extort people and take the money and go. They didn't. So the way they colonized the North was they were like, we'll take the taxes. You can continue speaking Hausa. In fact, we'll use Hausa for the army. We're just going to change it to Roman script rather than Ajami. Whereas the French colonialists wanted to be like, we're creating little French people. So there's a great film, the heritage of the griot in English, but it's about the Sunjata story, and the kind of main conflict there is between a little boy who's going to a French school and learning our ancestors, the Gauls, and his ancestral griot who comes to tell him the story of his ancestry. So the French were very invested in kind of claiming whatever culture was created in Francophone Africa. So there are some really beautiful films that have been made, but there would be things like it would be edited in Paris, or they would send French students to learn how to make films in Africa. So there was still this there was that issue. And I think for, there were the early Nigerian corporation films like Shehu Umar, that was made from, which I actually just saw for the first time this year, that was made from the novel Shehu Umar by Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. There was Bullfrog in the Sun, based on Achebe's novel. And so Nigerians were making films in the 1970s on the film stock. It was just expensive. But I think the kind of innovation that happened in the 1980s and 90s when those first, I'm from TV, when people were recording things on VHS and then people started making films straight to VHS, I think that was exciting because it kind of bypassed the funding issue in some way. People were able to make films for very cheap and reach audiences that were interested in it. And I think now we're kind of back to the problem of funding. If you look at Netflix, where there are foreign interests who are interested in telling certain kinds of stories. And so, I mean, on the one hand, there's really exciting things being made. So like Zap Ben Halima, that Korede Aziz made, which was just a short film, but a kind of a short Hausa science fiction film. I think it's enabling that sort of thing to be made, but it's also kind of restricting people. And even, unfortunately, like the first Kannywood film on Netflix, it was advertised as being global, and that's what we would want it to be, but I couldn't get it in the UK, I couldn't get it in the US. The only time I was able to see it was when I came to Nigeria. So there's an inequality in the sorts of stories that are being allowed to reach that global audience by the sort of structures that are being put in place. So ideally, the structures would be created in Nigeria, and Hausa, if Hausa filmmakers could come together and create a platform, then, YouTube is a good platform for reaching more people. When I've taught my students Maria, Ali Nuhu's film, I had students from Somalia and Tanzania who were so in love with it because they're like, this is our story too. So I think if Kannywood were able to, dub or subtitle things in Swahili and Somali, you would reach a Pan-African audience as well. So sorry, I've gone a long time. Let me let you back.
No, but you answered this very aptly. Thank you so much. So Asabi, I'm going to ask you a packed question, and I hope that you're just, able to just answer it as it comes. So whenever I watch Nollywood movies and then they're trying to represent Northerners, I'm always very annoyed because, one, the accent is always very wrong. Secondly, the dressing is always off. Thirdly, it's not very authentic. And they are also, she talked about inequality. There are inequality of opportunities, it seems, even the way Nollywood is organized and the opportunities that Nollywood gets, Lagos being the hub, and the way Kannywood is organized and the opportunities that it gets, with Kano being the hub. And I wonder, as an actress, when you see such representation, seeing that it seems like, because for instance, Lupita, when she was acting Black Panther, she had to use Trevor Noah and his whole lineage to teach her how to pronounce certain words in, I don't know how to pronounce it in the South African language, but she did a lot of work on trying to get her tongue to sound right, on trying to get herself to sound right. So we're not saying that Northern scenes have to be acted by Northern actresses, but the lack of effort, I wonder what you would attribute that to, in your thoughts.
Well, in my thoughts, I would attribute that to the fact that most of the time, maybe, don't go and quote me. Maybe they have this notion that in the North, let me just give you a typical example. In law school, I was seated next to somebody in class, and he's Igbo, who grew up in Lagos and all of that. And then we were talking, and he was like, "You speak English really well, and you say you're Hausa." And I looked at him, and I said, "Yes." I mean, he was shocked that I can actually speak English. So they may have this notion that Northerners are not so well educated. That is there, you know. So sometimes when they're looking for actors, and then I have heard stories where they were told that if you come to the North, there are no people that speak English very well, so and even if you explain to them, they won't be able to act the role very well. So, you know, like there are no actors that have the capacity to play some roles. So they end up just taking their people to the people from the South in Nollywood to play those roles. So they have that notion. So until we are able to change that narrative in Kannywood and in the Hausa film industry generally, that would keep happening, actually. Because even when I met Shola Shobowale, and we acted a movie, what's the name of this movie again? Nanjala, with Nancy Sime and everything. And we were talking, and she was like, "You're from the North?" And I said, "Yes." I never knew we could find good actors like this in the North. I would talk about you when I go to Lagos and all of that. And, you know, I was taken aback, like, seriously, there are a lot of us that can actually do much more. So that notion is actually there. So when I think about it, I think about how do we build our capacity in the North? What's the opportunities that they have in the South, in Nollywood? They have capacity building, they have opportunities for grants. They are always developing themselves. But what are we doing here in the North? Are we developing ourselves? Even if nobody is coming to help us, for example, we keep complaining that the government is not giving us the opportunities that Nollywood is getting. Okay, we're Hausa filmmakers. Have you gone to YouTube to sit as an actor to learn? Have you gone to YouTube to sit as a filmmaker to learn? Have you gone to YouTube to sit as a cinematographer to learn? We have to use what we have to improve and upgrade ourselves before somebody can even come to us. Like she said, we can use YouTube to sell ourselves out there. If Netflix is not promoting us, we can use other alternatives, other distribution channels to help ourselves.
Thank you very much. That was a very, very brilliant answer. Thank you so much. And you know, you kept on talking about capacity building and learning and teaching. And I think I'm going to ask the next question to our filmmaker. I don't think I've ever heard any actor in Nigeria that has gone to school to study acting. And also some people that went to ABU here, like the way schools restrict you, and it's not just ABU, like, you know, schools restrict your creativity and your expression. I wonder how they want to now promote films, they want to promote creativity, when they tell you you cannot wear this thing to school, when schools are giving you ridiculous dress codes, where, you know, like you're being treated like you're still being treated like a child, you know, even as an adult. Like, you know, even your forms of expressions are always limited. They're always pushed back. And even when it comes to like proper training or of actors and actresses, we don't necessarily, I don't know anybody that said, oh, I went to school to learn acting, or I studied theater art, and then any of our big stars. So I wonder if that's a problem that you face in your line of work as a filmmaker. So when you are looking for people to act a particular scene, or do you see that? Is that glaring for you?
So that's the thing. That's the trouble with being a Nigerian or African. The trouble is our minds. We are not there. And there is one way to be there, to learn the skill. There is no other way you can be a good actor or a filmmaker without learning the act of filmmaking or acting. You can't give me an aeroplane and you ask me to pilot. You will die. I cannot know how to drive and you insist that I drive. No matter how you push me, I need time to learn. And that's the trouble. We don't learn. And that's why our cinema, our industry is whack. It's one of the reasons why I told myself I am just going to do documentaries. And even before I embarked on that, I went to school. I studied theater. It's the closest thing you can study in the Nigerian university. There are no film studies in our universities. But I went for film training. I went to film school. Without that, a doctor mentioned why she can watch certain films in London or in the US. You can't, because we keep playing small. And so they put us in this box where we belong. I'm afraid very soon the Oscars will create that small box for us because we have refused to play at the international stage. It's not working until we deliberately start to build systems. Hollywood is a system, an institution that was built more than 100 years ago. And when you say, I'm going to Hollywood, there is a structure. When you say you're going to Hollywood, where are you going? You go to Lagos, Eco Hotel. When you say you're going to Kannywood, where do they go? If you meet Sarki here, you would have met him yesterday. Probably it's to him you will go. So we play small, and it won't work until we begin to train ourselves on the bigger platform, on the bigger stage. We're never going to catch up with the world. Filmmaking is big-time business, multi-billion-dollar business. And so when we keep doing our drama, our state drama, Beniboro, Pro Max, we're not going to go anywhere, and our stories will keep being with us here. Just one way. We must become professionals.
Thank you so much. There's absolute truth in what you've said. However, I often wonder if there are things that we can do, and if there are also things that perhaps we need support in. And now I'm going to throw my question to Doctor, because when I look at the film industry, especially in northern Nigeria, I'm often very conflicted between, do you want the film industry or do you not want the film industry? If you hear how people say, I want a film chi, like it's very condescending, like they know what they're saying, they know what they're trying to say. So, and then you look at even our politicians who like to play to the gallery. So during elections, they're going to bring Rahama Sadau, they will bring every other person that would come out there and say, I endorse you. But when it comes after election, and maybe they're talking about Rahama Sadau's dressing, a politician will now come out and stand behind the head of Hizbah and say, yes, we condemn indecent dressings, or these people that do Kannywood are bad influence. So I always wonder, can we pick a struggle? Because we cannot keep on saying we need to build stronger institutions, we need to do this, we need to do that, when one, government plays the gallery, two, we also have lots of restrictions and banning. Like there are so many. My aunt used to be an actress, and I know I live in the world whereby I know there are certain times I will say, I want them, but it's such a Kanuba. Like she can't even enter Kanu, or this person can't even enter this person can't. So I always wonder, how do we do that when you're being banned? You can just write a book that has kissing scene, and your book is banned. You can just. I mean, Rahama Sadau was doing music with classic or something, and she was banned. So I mean, it didn't work, but yeah. So how can we ensure that, we are able to build these structures without these unnecessary restrictions?
I mean, I'm an academic, so and I'm kind of outside now. So I feel like I knew the industry much better about 15 years ago, then there have been a lot of changes. But I think the one thing that keeps happening is that there's always that pull me down sort of thing. And like, I think the part of the story behind that initial Ramasadao banning was that someone thought Buhari had promised a film village, and then there was the reaction against it, and so everyone was trying to be careful. But I don't think anything ever came of that. So it just pulled down Ramasadao, and then she ends up, doing her own thing and doing fine. So some of my thoughts on this, I actually just used this in the end of a paper I'm publishing, but I think this festival is a good example of building structures, right? And the really exciting panels, and also kind of exciting community building. That paper was about translation and kind of building up structures for doing that. But I think another good example would be the Surreal 16 in Lagos, who are doing really interesting art films that the regular cinemas don't want to take because they don't think that they have a popular audience, but they've just created their own festival. So I think sometimes it's a matter of just coming together with like-minded people and building your own capacity. Unfortunately, that's not it's hard to get the billions of dollars, but I think so the Surreal 16, for example, Sijo Obasi's Mami Wata won Best Cinematography at Sundance, right? It's now been Nigeria's, submission to the Oscars last year. We have another Hausa film made by, I think it's Prince Daniel, May Martaba, that's also, so I think some of that's also like collaborating with, let's say, other Christian filmmakers who speak Hausa, right? Kenneth Gyang, Prince Daniel, other people in Kaduna and Jos who are really interested in making the films and who speak Hausa and may not have some of the kind of restrictions that there are in Kano. And I think those are possibilities.
Thank you so much. I'm going to move to you because I wanted to ask, as a filmmaker that makes documentary, that would make films, because all of the gleaming pictures that you painted would soon disperse, and you would be able to do what you love to do. I wanted to ask specifically on the appeal to global, how can you tell authentic stories while still being able to appeal to global? Because when it comes to African cinema, I know that my thoughts are all over the place, but flow with me. It seems like there is a market for certain stories that come out of Africa, and it's normally stories of people suffering. It's normally stories of, the black skin just, impoverished, in poverty, it's always just an image. The same thing like when you look at Nollywood's representation of Hausa people, it's always Meshago. It's always the person that cannot speak proper English. It's always, I'm coming, but, all those funny ways of, we do not necessarily have them as bank CEOs. So when Asabe said something like, people tell her, oh, you're from the north, but you can speak English, and people are shocked, it's like the truth is, people know that Northerners can speak English because we've had Northerners that were presidents, that were ministers, that are all that. However, the best way for people to look at a culture is through the films. So I just wanted to know how you are able to balance these two. So global.
Okay, yes. Yeah. How to get global audience.
That and tell authentic stories.
Yes. So we do not have any story than the story of Amina, Hawa, Musa, like you said. But then, who are they? Right? Who are they in their typical identity? These are the stories that you can sell at the global market. You can't tell Oyibo's story for him. You can't want to copy Oyibo love or dancing in the flower in Akanu, the Ake, na Indiawa. You can't do that, and you want to sell it to the global audience.
I love that.
But it won't work, because I'm saying we can't tell your story the way you can tell it. And so the story we must put on the global stage is our story, yes. Is our authentic story of what we do of Sarauta, of our market, of the palace language, of the Makada story, of our songs, of our history, our ancestry, our matriarchs, our patriarchs. But how do we do it? I said it that it's a matter of learning. And when I say learning, every film that you watch from Hollywood has what is called structure. And you see, that's a product of what? Learning. You can't know it until you learn it. Proper structuring of story. When you watch those stories that we enjoy from here, it's the matter of structuring a story, plotting, creative writing. It all starts from creative writing. How do you create the stories? How do you plot them? The hero's journey, the characters, who are they? What are the plot points that you all link to a central plot point? These are things that in professional industries, people sit down in development rooms to develop stories. To sit like for a year. Developing story can take a year. Developing stories. But then Allah gaya mun, kwana na ake a film a Nigeria, a rubuta shi a je a yi shooting. So, won't it show? And how do you allow a woman to sit down and watch it? How do you want to sell it when you go to Sundance, when you go to Oscars? Like I said, you said something that I feel like I should do a brief on about, I'm sorry, but I think I have the idea about how Mami Wata, is doing. Now, that's an authentic African story. And when you look at that story, time was taken to develop it, to write it, to cast. Here, my brother has to be that's member of that cast too. My auntie has to be the producer, directed by Binwana, produced by Binwana, acted by Binwana, songs to score by Binwana.
But Taylor Perry does it.
It works. But I'm saying, there's something about breaking the rules. You can break rules in every game. But what do you need to do before you break the rules? You know it, like the back of your hand. And we do not know it yet.
Could I respond to a few things there? Yes. I mean, CJ Obasi and his wife work really closely together, so it is a family affair, but it's true that they did, their main actress is from Senegal, I think. But the other thing, I think there are amazing storytellers, and there are really good Kannywood films that have been made, right? Like Nazir Adam Saleh is one of my favorite Hausa writers. I think he tells a brilliant story, and he's one of Kannywood's best script writers, right? Fauzia D. Suleiman writes amazing books and also really good stories. So I think we have those good storytellers. I agree that sometimes the stories are a bit rushed and could use more development. I've seen plenty of those. But even the singing and dancing that everyone is like, oh, this is not Hausa culture. It has become Hausa culture. Maybe that's controversial, but I really mourn the loss of that because I feel like that singing and dancing was a structuring element to the stories. There's a lot of character development and story development that you can do in those episodes. But Kannywood filmmakers have been told for the past 20 years, this is not professional, this is not your culture. And a lot of that has gone, and I think the stories become more boring without it. So I think there's something to be said for the singing and dancing. Maybe, make it more professional or whatever. But I don't think, just Sarauta, that's not the only story that is to be told. A lot of the Kannywood films that have been made are real stories about real people. And so I think those stories are being made. Maybe they just need to be made with a little bit more nuance and sophistication of editing. But I think there have been lots of really good films that have been made, just maybe improve them a bit.
Okay. Do you want to
say something?
Okay. Yeah, you will say something, but I actually saved the last question because we're going to start getting Q&A, just 2-3 people. But I wanted to ask you, as an actress, misogyny in terms of audience and in terms of even acting, I know it rears its ugly head all the time. How do you think that limits you as an actress and perhaps your colleagues, your other female actresses, in being able to fully express themselves, in being able to fully body their role? Because it's just that thing that even as a professional, like wherever I go to, it's at the back of my head that, you know, like Khalid Hussein said, you know, as a compass points north, you know, a man's accusing finger would always point to a woman. And we see that even in the way they talk about Kannywood, when they talk about the death of morality, they always point to the female actresses and not the male actors. So I wonder how that affects your creativity, how that affects your expression. So perhaps you can answer that, then maybe make the comment you wanted to make.
Okay, thank you. Well, that doesn't affect me. And the reason why that doesn't affect me is because it's one of the reasons why I even came into the industry. It's one of the reasons. Because I mean, I have been where I am, doing my thing, and then I decided, Kai, let me start this. I've always had the interest as a kid, you know, being in drama clubs, you know, doing the whole drama, acting, enjoying it. But I never thought that I would take it as a professional career. So I decided to join because the narrative, they're always pointing the finger at the woman. Karuachi, blah, blah, blah. As a matter of fact, when my aunt, who is late now, heard that I am an actress, in short, it came out on the paper, and the caption was that a lawyer dumps law for acting. Hey, fire on the mountain. My uncles, my aunties, they were calling my parents. Yeah, look at a bit of our film. Hey, I told her, man, the ticket in Nanya that I can't have her film. But that was the number one thing my auntie said, that nobody's going to marry me. I will not get married. By the way, I'm still not married. She was right. She's not right. Yes. So said nobody is going to marry me because I'm acting. It's a job for a prostitute and all of that. So I am here today because I want to change the narrative. I want to change the narrative. It's not a job for a prostitute. And you do not have to sell your body, sell yourself to make it in the film industry. And yes, we find that stereotype, you know, we find the pointing fingers even in the industry, you know, where the man is given maybe the stage and you're just given the backstage. And that is why I am here. I am here, okay, in one of my interviews with the BBC, I saw a lot of comments. They were insulting me because I said I wanted to empower women. They didn't understand what I mean by empowering women.
No, trust me, they do.
No.
They do.
Okay.
I am a recipient of their insults.
So, my empowerment is enlightening and sensitizing the women that they can stand. I'm not saying do not submit. I am not saying do not get married. No, that is not what I am saying. I am saying that you can make a difference as a woman. I am saying that you can have a voice as a woman. That is what I am saying. And what kind of empowerment do I want to do in the industry? I want to be the one where other young girls look up to and they come to for mentorship. That is actually missing in the industry. Where, okay, if a female wants mentorship, she is going to a male. And the narrative is that if you see Asabe, Madaki, and Alinuhu, what is happening? They are so close. Stories start to erupt. But if they see Asabe, Madaki, and Binwana, we're always helping ourselves and all, they're like, okay, women, No, I know that. I know that narrative too. Well, we just have to close our eyes and block our ears and do what we have to do for ourselves as women. Now, back to what I wanted to say. She was saying that she loves the music. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love watching Bollywood movies. You can see that they're telling their own story. That is who they are. We can tell our story and still copy, but then we should make it real and authentic. Yes, gaskiya, we can make it real and authentic. So we can still go back to that, but we can make it our own way, our own style. Because the truth is, if Ibrahim is toasting me today, he's not going to come singing and dancing, no. But there is a way we can do the singing and the dancing in our own way.
Thank you very much. And now it's time for questions. Hey, wo. La. Kai. Sada. Kada kai. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have Sada, how many questions? 3. Okay. Sada, please pick now. I don't have the courage to be disliked. Okay, Sada, please pick. No, I don't like. Okay, 2. Okay, so 3. So what do we give?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to have all of you here. I'm also a filmmaker and I'm in media and comms. So generally about African cinema. So I made like 3 comments. The first one is it the lack of quality creative strength that makes Kannywood suffer in terms of cinematic production? Or is it the conservative nature of the Arewa culture here, which leads to some of the nuances you mentioned, like they regard you as a prostitute and stuff like that? So moving on from that, I'm a screenwriter, I have tried to explore means of writing stories. There is also an identity, like you're not one of us, so you can't tell our stories. But for someone that understands what filmmaking is and you're coming from a point of research, I'm going to go back into the stories, get feedbacks from you. Nobody wants to talk. Nobody wants to mention the things that really matter to them. And lastly, there is no creative ecosystem here. So with that, we cannot even have mentorship. And that's what brings me back to Dr. Karen's comment about we can tell stories our way. If I don't have like an anti-Shola or like let me say Nancy Isime that I can be like, oh, there's a film school, there are these places to go to. So how then do we improve the quality content of productions that come from here? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we can just get all the questions then.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I like. You can't hear me. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Can I go on? Yes. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. The director, sorry, I don't know your name, but sorry. Say again? Bilwana. Binwana, yeah. You mentioned so much about the structures in Hollywood, and I would like you to share more light on that. And the reason for that is I'm a bit concerned about copy and paste, in the sense that you spoke about storytelling, how to structure stories and all of that. And that is one, like how do we create the balance? Because Hollywood is good. When I watch Hollywood, I enjoy the movies, but I'm thinking about our culture. Like Asebe mentioned, how do we do this and still maintain our culture? I like to assume that you're talking about the technical structure of how to produce like a really good quality film. I'm right now working on Shatter's project, for example, where all of the recordings that we have are so bad. And Shatter is good. And he traveled around the world. They recorded him in the United States, in Germany, in London. But all the recording of Shatter in northern Nigeria, for example, when we see them and we try to work with them, we go through hell trying to bring out something that we can still listen, even till today. Like, we can't listen to Shatter and really enjoy it because that technical quality is missing. And that takes me to what Kanyewood is doing. I grew up on Kanyewood movies, but right now I can't watch Kanyewood movies because I feel like they've not grown with me and they've just stuck to their old ways. And I see us celebrate it a lot. And I don't know, how can we strike the balance in terms of how we copy from Hollywood, bring it to our own context here in northern Nigeria, and still maintain our cultures and our own narratives? Yeah, a bit mixed.
Thank you so much. So the third person, I think third person is
Thank
such
you,
a
Sada.
bully.
I've been cleared.
He has not been cleared, and I followed you on Instagram.
Hi, thank you for the panel. It was very interesting. I just wanted to add about the whole thing that we're talking about in terms of Hollywood and looking at Hollywood specifically, and also just talking about the structure that Hollywood has. I think the narrative and the conversation needs to be around how we as Hausa people can look at the way that we create films in terms of like how we're trying to structure that. I don't think we should be looking to Hollywood. I don't think we should be putting Western standards for how we create our work. I think that we should create our own work and come up with a standard for ourselves. Because you look at Hollywood and you look at the history, and it comes from people, individuals, and sort of movements that people have had to come up with the structures that they've come up with. Look at Wes Anderson, for example. He came up with his film style that everybody knows, like, around the world. And recently, there were, like, TikTok trends about that. We can create that ourselves, too, with our own stories. And I also wanted to bring up the fact that I know that Kanyewood does a lot of, like, dancing and singing and stuff like that in the movies, but you also have to look at the history of Kanyewood, and you have to look at how these movies started in the first place, which were adaptations of the Hausa books that people were writing at the very beginning, which was also based off of like romantic genres, right? And so I think the conversation also just needs to be about how our society now has changed and how Kanyewood needs to reflect that. And talking about also how we can, I guess, talk about our own stories through this singing and through this dancing. It's the same textile designer, it's the same conversation about printed textiles. Printed textiles were not originally ours. It's something that was done for Indonesians that ended up coming to West Africa. And now you have people who argue that printed textiles are African because that's what everybody was. If you ask a random person somewhere else what they think about or what like African people wear, they'll tell you it's printed textiles. But like, you look at the history and you look at the colonization and you realize that technically the history of it, it's not ours, but we're trying to make it ours. You have people doing adire that people are now wearing for weddings. You have people doing psyche and stuff like that. So I think that the bottom line is we need to stop looking at Western standards and putting it as our standards, which is very hard. It's very hard. We've been colonized by them. People go abroad and learn in Western standards and learn in like American universities and UK universities. I did that too. And so I'm coming back from that lens of looking at it from a UK perspective. But then if you get this knowledge and you come back to your country, you start a movement with what you've learned. Nobody is saying that you shouldn't look at other people, but look at it in terms of, I'm looking at it so that I can also come up with my own ideas of what I'm trying to do. And so that way, we can also just not even build the connections between Nigeria in North, in the South, and in the West, we can also start looking at other African countries and start our own film festivals as well, and awards and stuff. So instead of being like, oh, I need to win an Oscar, I need to be nominated for an Emmy, we can do that within the continent. It's very difficult, of course, policies come into play, and so then this is now not a conversation of just like us in this group. You have to also involve stakeholders like the government. You have to involve people who write policies, because then it's easier for us to implement all of these things. And sorry, one last thing also, there's a film that has, a Hausa film apparently, that has been nominated for an Oscar. It's called, what's it called again? Me Martaba. Yeah.
Sorry, it wasn't nominated. It was mentioned, submitted, not nominated. The nominations are out and is not part of the list, unfortunately for us.
Okay, so I'm going to just give 1 minute to just answer back so that we can snap pictures and call it a day.
Okay, so let me try and condense her question, his question, and her comment. I know that I have mentioned the word structure, institution a lot, but I also remember giving an example with, I can't fly an aeroplane if I don't go to learn how to fly. I can't be an engineer without going to learn how to operate a machine. I'm sure even your textile design, there is a process that you must have learned to use the machine from stage 1 to 2. Coming back to you, it means that I do not think any of us here had mentioned anything about copying Hollywood. But I think the mention of Hollywood is in the place of professionalism, the craft, the skill of filmmaking, which is the same all over the world. Korean films, Indian films, you watch K-drama, you cry. You watch Indian films, you enjoy it. You watch Hollywood films, the action and everything, you enjoy it. Now, we are not interested in their stories. What we are interested in learning the skill of filmmaking from script to screen. And until we do that, we might not be able to participate on a global stage. And just to add to you, I think if you like, you can go to film school. If you like, you don't have to. The YouTube is there for you. Technology is there for us to learn. Filmmaking has steps. Even from writing, who can tell me the writing structure? It's there. You apply it whether you're Hausa or English. And that's what Hollywood does. That's what the Koreans do. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, Act 5. What happens? Some use the 3-act structure, but we don't. Do we? We don't do it. And so it's only through that you're able to build your story from Act 1, inciting incident, the premise, inciting incident, from log line, you develop synopsis. They do not skip these processes. And then you start by crafting the plot. And then Act 1, inciting incident happens, the hero is normal. And then calls of adventure. He goes on an adventure. And he goes through all the obstacles. As if I will die, I'll give up, but hey, oh yeah, frozen when Elsa was kidnapped, in the castle, and oh, hope is lost. And then again, a lover boy comes around, and then, she was saved. That's how the structure is all over the world. But here, you want to just, then Ibro knock on the door and you enter, and there is no beginning, no middle, no end. And that's the structure that I am advocating for, that as filmmakers, we can learn this thing, even on YouTube. Thank you.
Okay. Asabe, do you want to go next? And Dr. will go last.
Okay. You said something about mentorship, right? Okay, so that's what I want to start here, because I see that is a gap. There's no mentorship. I want to start with the female filmmakers. I want to start an academy on my own, where I would start training females and I mean, the male too will start to come to learn from us. You know, myself and Binwana, we've been on to a film school where we learned a lot, we were taught a lot. And even from there, you know, Binwana, we talked about it, that we're going to train other females. But yeah, it's something that I am going to start. I'm going to start that academy where I teach filmmaking, I teach acting, from screen to, you know, the final stage. We're going to start that. I'm going to start small. That's what I can do. I start small, but it's something, because when I start, okay, imagine if myself and Binwana didn't go to that film school, I won't be thinking like this. So we do it,
I
do
know the
it.
things I know too.
Huh?
I wouldn't have known a lot of things that I know now too.
So we wouldn't have known what we know today. And when you learn something, it's always good to step down. When you pass it down, assuming I train 20 females now, they're going to train another 20. So imagine how that is just going to spread. And it's just starting from that training that I went for. So I am taking it upon myself to train others. So that mentorship is going to be there. I would mentor them because there's something they call kantawaye. They do kantawaye in the film industry. You're just coming, you do not know, so they will do kantawaye for you. I don't know how to. So I would give them orientation. What are you supposed to do, so that nobody is lying to you, so that nobody is deceiving you as a female coming into the industry. So that is a gap that I'm going to try to, you know, close up gradually till maybe other filmmakers, Binwana is going to join me.
Thank you.
Okay. And sorry, and then you said something about you wanting to tell the Northern story, that you could do research and all of that. Yes, it's possible for you to research and tell Northern stories. But the truth is, I tell you that they're coming from Nollywood to tell our stories in Arewa because we have authentic stories. We have lots of stories that would sell globally. That is why they're coming to tell, like, it's not a Northerner that told the story of Amina, the one on Netflix.
Unfortunately so.
Yes.
And he told it in a terrible way.
Yes. So you see, you need, if you're going to tell the Northern story, you need to come and meet those in the North, do the research. Like, look at her documentary. She traveled a lot. She spent time doing research. So you can do that, but then you need to partner or collaborate with others in the North. And for us to grow in the Hausa industry, we need a lot of collaboration. Aside capacity building. So it's all about, you look at it that, for what? Seriously, for what? You want to be the only one? It's only Asabema Adaki. It's only. How has that helped Bilkisu? How has that helped Salome, who is in the North? How has it helped us? So we need to collaborate. And if we're able to collaborate, because if you see this movie, Black Book, I was part of it. It had 17 executive producers. 17 of them came together to do that movie, Black Book. What are we doing in Kannywood? What are we doing in Arewa? How many of us have come together to do a film, but only, it's only Binwana.
So Asabe, in Bollywood, the way they make films, Dr. Kamen mentioned community, of like minds. You never see 1-2 people coming to do a film. They are usually a community of people. Sometimes even the actors, the lead actors, you have to be part of, the process, the collaboration. Say, hey, we are putting funds here, you bring here, and we make, we make films. And I believe in the power of building a community, because I know I'm a victim of going to somebody to say, look, I have all this chronicles of northern legends, films that we should start doing. Sarauniya Daurama, ba Queen Amina bace kadai, you know, Sarauniya aka yi a Arewa and all that. But the person told me, kai, Kevin Wana, wannan harkar naku na yan iska, you know, marasa amfani. You know, northern people, the money is there, but nobody believes in investing in films. And I think that's of the biggest challenge that we have.
Thank you. Can we move to Doctor? Yes, please. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I really think they said most everything. Yeah. And I think what you're doing is really exciting. I think what you're doing is really exciting and what needs to be done as far as the mentorship. But I mean, if you go back to Hollywood, not all those filmmakers have gone to film school, right? It's a whole apprenticeship system. You learn, you're mentored by other people. And you become experts by doing it. So I think that like purposely trying to mentor women out of the Kantawaye thing is really exciting.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, again, like the community, like just kind of coming together with people who are like-minded and not just everyone doing their own thing and scattering, but bringing all that ability together. I think that's exciting. And then the thing, a lot of them were coming from novels, or they were being written by novelists or directed by novelists. Not all of them, right? There are plenty of whack Kannywood movies that don't make any sense. Or even some of them, you know, they make sense, but then they're random tangents or something. But there are really, really good storytellers who are novelists and filmmakers. And I think, like, people who have the capacity in Nollywood, who have the funding, if they could come together and collaborate, I think any film set in the North should have at least a co-writer who's from the North and who speaks Hausa. And I think those sorts of collaborations could bring a lot of power to Kannywood.
Thank you so much.
Let's see after. Let's look at your script together.
Also, there's Kilaf, the Kano International Film Festival that was held in November. So I think that there are people trying to do things. They just need more people to come together and support them.
So thank you so much for listening. I think it's important that I mentioned that my late aunt was the first Queen Amina, Hawamaina, and she did a wonderful job. Hausawa suka ce laifin daɗi karewa. Thank you so much for listening to this. And yes, we would like to have our picture and get out of your faces.
Round of applause. I'm sorry we can't take enough questions. We're really running out of time. We still have one panel. We still have String Shady to perform. Classic is going to perform later. And we have poetry session. Of course, we have the poetry night. So we'll rush into it. The next panel is going to be in Hausa. Zangon da za mu shiga shine zango na ƙarshe na bikin Hibab na shekara 2020. Please clap for yourselves for staying all through it. Okay. Zangon da za mu shiga yanzu shine Hausa a kafafen sada zumunta. Hausa in the digital space. I'll just go ahead and invite the moderator for this panel. Please, a round of applause for Hajia Hawal Liman. Can we have one house? I know we're all excited, but can we have one house? We can take pictures at the exhibition space, please. Hawal Liman, ita ce mai taimakawa shugaban kasar Najeriya ta fannin fasaha akan harkokin mata da akan matasa da kuma karfafa al'umma. Ta yi sama da shekara 10 a aikin ci gaban matasa da karfafa al'umma. Hauwa ta jagoranci yunkurin da ke inganta sauyin zamantakewa mai dorewa. Ita ce ta kafa kungiyar Inspire for Impact Initiative. Kungiyar da ta sami lambar yabo ta mayar da hankali kan karfafawa mata da matasa gwiwa ta hanyar kasuwanci da bunƙasa jari. Hauwa ta samu lambobin yabo da yawa, ciki har da kasancewa jagora a 2016 tsarin yabawa na Mandela Washington, a 2017 da zama ɗaya daga cikin mutane 50 da suka yi tashe da kwarewa ta British Council. Hauwa mai kishin ƙasar ta ce kuma ta walkeci Najeriya a tarurrukan ƙasa da ƙasa, ciki har da na taron Majalisar Ɗinkin Duniya. Sannan zuwa. Zan gayyaci Hajiya Aisha Falke. Aisha Falke mai ba da shawara ce ta kafafen watsa labarai da kirkire-kirkiren fasaha ta agaza wa ƙananan 'yan kasuwa kuma mai kishi da ƙarfafawa mata da matasa ce. A matsayinta na shugabar ƙungiyar Northern Hibiscus, malamar aji, ta kwashe sama da shekara 8 tana samar da dandali da ke baiwa mata masu ƙananan sana'o'i da kasuwanci a arewacin Najeriya filin baje kolin su. Mun gode da zuwa, Hajiya Aisha. Sai zan gayyaci Sadiya Tahir. Sadiya Tahir tana aiki ne a kafafen yanar gizo inda take ba da shawara kan jinsi da kuma yadda halayen kafofin watsa labarai suke gudana. Tana aji ayyukanta akan tashar YouTube da dandamalai daban-daban na kafofin watsa labarai a yanar gizo. Sadiya tana cikin jagororin Arewa Mitu a jihar Sokoto a shekara ta 2015. Sai kuma wadda za ta cike wannan gurbi ba ɗaya bace face Rahama Yalwa. Rahama lauya ce da ta canza sheƙa zuwa malamar makaranta mai koyar da yara ƙanana. Ta ci gaba ɗaukar kanta a matsayin ɗaliba a makarantar duniya inda take koyo da haɓakawa a koyaushe. Rahama tana da sha'awar labaran Afirka da kuma hanyoyin da suke haɗa kan al'umma. Mun gode. Zan miƙa ma Hajiya Hauwa ragamar taron.
To ranka ya daɗe.
Minti 40 kafin mu tambaye.
Ai ba na ji ma za mu kai yanda za mu ba da lokaci. Sincerely speaking, na ɗauka na iya Hausa. Amma da na ji wannan kin ji ko za a fara in gausa tun yanzu. Da na ji Ogasa da ya yi introduction ɗin nan ya bayyanar da mu sai na san cewa lallai da sake kuma wannan maudu'in da za mu tattauna ya zo a lokacin da ina da yakinin cewa ya zo a lokacin da ya kamata a yi shi, amma kuma na tambaye su sun ce za mu iya mixing, so a mana afuwa za mu yi ingausa ne, za mu yi da Hausa, za mu yi da Turanci. So it's really an interesting one, having the opportunity to, moderate this exciting panel. And alhamdulillah, I have some interesting personalities that I believe will do justice to this topic. And I believe there's no better time than now to talk about Hausa in the digital space, yaran Hausa a digital space. Saboda mene? Saboda research ɗin da na ɗanyi sanda aka bani wannan maudu'in ya nuna min cewa a duniya gabaki ɗaya muna da mutane sama da miliyan 88 da suke magana da harshen Hausa. Ana cikin wannan miliyan 88 ɗin, miliyan 54 haifaffu ne, an haife su a cikin yaren Hausa ne, suna yin shi ne a yare na farko. Sauran kuma su ne wanda kamar suna yin shi ne a yare na biyu. Kuma wani abun ƙayatarwa shine yaren nan na Hausa shine yare na 11 da aka fi magana da shi a duniya gabaki daya. A Afirka kuma shine yare na farko wanda al'umman da suke magana da wannan yaren sun fi na kowane yare yawa a Afirka gabaki daya. So saboda haka kun ga a rayuwa yanzu a yanda duniya ta juya, yanda al'amura suka juya, a turance yanda ake cewa the future is youth and the future is digital, babu lokacin da ya kamata mu tattauna akan rawar da yaren Hausa yake takawa a fagen yada zumunta, wato digital space da ake magana. So na ɗaya akan tambayoyin da zan tambaya, kuma ina so mai covering kamar wasu areas haka kamar guda 4 zuwa 5. Amma na farko abin da nake so mai magana da shi, duka malaman da muke zaune da su kowa yana da bajinta a fannin da yake mu'amala da shi a wannan fage na digital space ɗin da muke magana. Ga malamar mu ta aji wadda kowa ya santa ta Northern Hibiscus, ba karamar rawa take takawa ba da duka sauran. So tambayar farko da zan fara yi malama, shin a digital space da ake da shi, ana kira ra'ayin kina ganin cewa duba da yawan alƙaliman jama'an da ke magana da yaren Hausa da kuma yadda yanzu ake cewa is a global village, shin yaren Hausa yana samun wakilci yanda ya kamata ya samu a fagen yada zumunta, ko kwaya kike ganin rawar take?
To, assalamu alaikum yan uwana, sannunku ko in ce barka da yamma. Akwai, zan iya cewa kuma zan iya cewa a'a, saboda ko mu yanzu da muke yin Hausa muna kwacewa muna ingausa.
Okay.
So zan iya cewa gaskiya yadda ya kamata ba ma yin shi yadda ya kamata. Amma kuma yana tafiya ne da zamani. Yadda zamani yake. Yanzu ki ga kana magana dole sai ka shigo da sai ka shigo da kamar yadda kika ce. So ya kamata a ce muna yin yara mun. Ya kamata muna yin gaskiya. Ya kamata a ce akwai muna kirkiro abubuwa da Hausa, muna yin kamar content creation da Hausa. Akwai content creators gaskiya, but yawanci ba a ba su abin da ya kamata. So wani sa'ilin sai kiga sun guje sun koma turanci. Kuma wani sa'ilin unfortunately in kana yi da Hausa zan ƙetara in ce kamar TikTok yanzu. In ka ce za ka nutsu ka yi da Hausa sai ka haɗu da bullies Hausawa da za su zo miki da manya-manyan zaguna da za ki ga kai gwara na kubce in koma turanci rufa kaina asiri. So wani sa'ilin akwai irin wannan gaskiya. So akwai representation kuma babu representation kuma akwai tsorata gaskiya a little bit. Ko mu ma mukan dan samu namu kin san.
So I'll go to Sadia. From the work that you do, how do you think digital tools can be leveraged to preserve and promote Hausa language and the cultural heritage?
So, sorry, this is my first time. So, assalamu alaikum, ina yin ku barkanmu da warhaka. So, basically, Bahaushe ce ni, but I also Basakwacha. So, za ku rinka jin different types of Hausa cikin abubuwan. So, forgive me. So, how we can leverage, the question is how we can leverage social media?
Yes,
Yes?
leverage it to preserve and promote Hausa language and the cultural heritage.
Okay, so we can preserve that by actually doing our content creation on all platforms, basically on digital spaces. The Hausa, do watch area Hausa, like who watch area Hausa kakaiya, just do that. And what I find interesting is, for instance, there was a time I was doing a video with BBC and I chose to do Sakwatanchi, and it was a very interesting choice because I didn't tell them I was going to do that. I told them it was in Hausa. They said yes, but banchi Sakwatanchi zanyiba. And when I did that, it's related with a lot of people, and somehow other people that are not even in the country, and it felt like other people that felt seen as well. And I have so sweet that's okay, but way other people are doing it, but and it feels like it's something that is on the digital space, so it's going to be preserved for a very long time. Anybody can find that, and there's a continuity in that, it's going to outlive most of us actually. So I think Magana the Hausa in any facet that you want to do it will really help. But also I want to also mention the saboda when the in bullies in you have to really the kafa na Magana the Hausa they will feel like okay our tamota I will get tamota type situation tamota amma they will come for you more than they would come for the other people.
Yes.
Kadan mistake mutun zai and kin gane before you know it an cika maka comment section da tashin hankali da bala'i. No, seriously. Because I remember when I also moved to Abuja by myself before I got married, and it wasn't sponsor is not a popular thing to do. It's not something that ake yi mace dai ta moving the kanta ta zauna. So I remember how I got a lot of kingani saboda kawai ana ganina Bahaushiya. The bullying that I got bullied har da ba wanda zai taba aurenki and kina zaman kanki abin nan kin zama sha type situation. So as much as we would want to, I also give space for people that don't want to even come and speak Hausa and just want to speak stick with the English language, to be honest, because it's somehow there's a thin layer there that is you have a layer of protection of your mental health in that situation. You're not getting bullied. They're not going to be seeing you as that. Kingani. So we are also our own problems. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. We are our own problems, to be honest. Muna da matsala sosai. So I think that whole thing, we have to actually think twice about it when it comes to digital space, how you interact. Akwai somebody at the end of that receiving that, no matter how insignificant you think your comments will be or how big the platform you think it is. Like, oh, one night I have the followers that I about to hear one commenting, but you don't know how that person is. So you know, I think, like I said, we can be our own problems in a lot of spaces. So yes, I do encourage a lot of younger people, and also I don't know why I keep saying younger people. I'm part of it.
So if I get to come out, like that support is key.
Yeah, to continue.
For the digital space to be fully utilized. A faɗaɗa ƙarfafa yadda ake yaran.
Dole sai supporting each other.
Yes, dole sai an taimaki juna, sai an ƙarfafa juna. Ba mutum ya fito ya content in shi ba. Mutum yana ganin ya yi ƙoƙari a zo a kukushe mishi a ringa, abin da zai kashe mishi gwiwa.
Kuma kisan content creation is such a difficult thing. So ka gama duk wannan tashi, ka gama komai haɗa komai sai a koma a kushe ka ana ta maka, maganan banza. So I think that's that.
Yes. So I will now go to Rahama. A tunaninki ko a ganinki wata rawa kike ganin yaren Hausa yana takawa a cikin fannin digital space ɗin nan, in kika duba cutting across social media platforms ɗin da ake da shi da kuma yawan al'umman da muke da shi, kina ganin muna amfani da fagen yada zumuntan nan ta hanyoyin da zai amfani al'umman mu, ko kina ganin dole sai mun ƙara ƙaimi wajen abin da muke yi? Saboda barin ƙara sauƙaƙa miki, saboda zaki gani misali, zaki ga kamar gwamnatin tarayya ko kuma wasu can wanda ma suke wasu abubuwa, zaki ga sun fito da damammaki da yawa, amma zaki ga matasan mu misali malama za ta zo ta yi post akan maybe wani training ne za a bada, sai ki kalli engagement din, kin gane, sai kuma a zo malama ta kawo wani biki, haɗaɗɗen biki na mutanen Abuja, kin gane, sai ki ga comments, ki ga interactions, ki ga engagements din. So kina ganin wannan abun yana kawo na kasu, kuma kina ganin rawar da ya kamata a taka din, ta wani fanni kike ganin ya kamata a taka rawa yanda abun zai karfafa?
Ina ganin jama'a barkanmu da yau, ina wurin ku, salamu alaikum, sunana Rahama. So ina ganin kamar matsalar akwai tamu sannan kuma akwai ta waje. Akwai tamu kamar yanzu akwai, in kamar performance, I think I've heard this happen a few times. In kamar performance sun zo Abuja, ana Abuja what's up, sai ka ji kowa ya shiru, ko irin ana jan ajiya Abuja and everything like that. So wannan tamu ce irin kowa na jan jiki, balle aka tashi aka ce abun Hausawa ne, sai ga mutane ba za su bada baya ba, ko kuma it's like it's almost not cool, except now of course ina ganin kamar the acceptance is getting better. Kamar ma hibaf in nan, like if you track the history of hibaf and their father, the suransu, there's a lot of ownership of mu Hausawa ne, kuma this is what we're doing now. I would say that kaman in commenting, people za su ce to ai Hausa in suna abun su kadai ke ganewa, Hausa kadai suke yi, ba a ji da suke faɗi da sauransu, right? So I do appreciate kaman the people that make posts and everything sai su sa subtitle. So it's either ko a ce kana yi as Bahaushe, kana Hausan, but then Hausawa kadai ke iya accessing abin da kake yi, ko kuma kana yi a Hausan but you're making it accessible to others through the way maybe kake subtitle in shi da sauransu. Dan mu yawanci ba mu ba juna baya, kila an ce Naija branch na nan tahe, zaki ga kowa ya sheka, you want to be associated with someone da ba dan arewa because nan kadai ne za a baka muhimmanci. In muna sai kaga kamar an rena, ai wannan kaza ba a ganta bakin komai ba, an fi son a ga association, ana gani kamar affiliation, gara 'yan waje su zo su ba mu validity kamar ba mu isa ba. So I think that is an issue da muke da kanmu, da cewa musan mahimmancin kanmu, musan cewa, every time muna cewa there's, and I understand that reality, even when we're having these conversations where it's like the North is always being sidelined, ka gane irin ya za a ce akwai gambasawa ba a arewa, ba a magananta, ka gane wane ne, wasu in suka tashi maganan mutanen su ba su tsayawa, ba su da waji, babu kunya, like irin an ba kunyan like you're being disrespectful, but irin ka gane irin kar a ce na cika magana, na cika son kaina. Dole ka so kanka, dole ka ga darajar kanka, because in baka so kanka baka ga darajar kanka ba, babu wanda zai ga darajar ka. So ga wasa waba na nan, mu ma mun san daga wasa waba ne, amma gobe za a ce there's the Kutis, and all of these women have done incredible work. Amma shi yasa zaka ga wai I discredit anybody zai kalle ni in 2024 ya ce wai ai ke arewa ce kin iya turanci, ƙarya kake yi. Renin wayo ne. Akwai wannan, right? And so even that there's then the in na zo na Hausa za a ce kila ba ni turanci, right? So we're always constantly trying to prove something. Gara a mixa kaza da kaza da kaza. So I think it's a yes and a no. That akwai inda muka, there's so much stride that we've made. Akwai wata da ke content in abinci ina gani yum on something, and it's been beautiful. Kin gane, and then also it's like me yasa sai an je karkara in ka tashi a arewa in baka je kauye ba ko ka sa bukka ko ka wani abu haka nan sai aka kaman irin arewa always has to be outdated. Ba zan iya zauna cikin gidana ba in comfort in yi magana a ce ni arewa ce. Irin dole sai na zama kauyawa da that is the only part that is celebrated because arewa people are everywhere. And we're living our lives where this is like we exist in this world in this day. So, you know.
Kawai yanda maganar da kika yi na yanzu, I was seated there, see one of my mentors ta kira ni. Sai muna magana da ita sai take cewa ina ganin ki ai kin je can sai fa su ringa cewa akwai yan arewa da suka je makaranta, akwai yan arewa da suka iya kaza. So kamar yadda kika faɗa, kamar yadda Malam Bature yake cewa if you don't blow your trumpet, no one is going to blow it for you. Kuma idan ba mu taking ownership na abun nan ba muka nuna al'adar mu ce yaran mu ne muna alfahari da shi kuma kamar yanda Sadiya ta faɗa wannan shaming din idan ba mu daina shi ba zan manta ba na ga wani post da aka yi kwanakin bayan na wasu Hausawan yara a Ingila suka zo suna alfahari like Hausan su iya karfin su sun koyi Hausa suna yi amma magana ta gaskiya wasu comments din sai ki ringa wannan lillahi wa rasulihi yaran nan ai sun yi kokari ka duba makaranta turanci za a musu sun dawo gida abokanansu amma har suka iya dagewa suka iya wannan Hausan amma babu abin da mutum zai yi illa ya zo ya kushe. So malama a Hausa a fagen yada zumunta har yanzu ina ga wasu ba su san economic opportunities ɗin da ke ciki ba. Shin ya kike gani yin amfani da yaren Hausa a cikin wannan dandalin na yada zumunta across board na duka social media platforms ɗin da ake da su da wanda ake kirkira da wanda ake yi, mutane suna underestimating arzikin da ke cikin gurin nan. A matsayinki na wadda take ta'ammali da wannan platform, za ki dan iya binta mana kaɗan daga cikin damammakin da mutanenmu za su iya amfani da shi. Kamar yadda aka faɗa yanzu da akwai kwanakin bayan na gama kin yi magana akan yadda cewa mun yi restricting kanmu kamar mun tsaida kanmu a gefe ɗaya. Naga kin sa kina son ki ga content creators a wannan fannin amma yanzu kamar alhamdulillah mun fara ganin kamar na catering masu cooking suna fitowa suna ƙara yawa. Wasu irin damammaki za ki bada musamman kuma ga mutanenmu yadda za a yada yaren nan na Hausa, musamman yadda matasanmu masu tasowa yadda yaren ke kokarin bacewa da kaɗan za ki ga yaro ne ki ga mu ma manyan dai muna da ɗan lallabawa amma sai ki ga yaran su yanzu maganar ma da Hausa tana musu wahala. So wasu hanyoyi kike ganin wasu damammaki ne a cikin gurin nan kuma an tashi amfani da su ta wasu hanyoyi ya kamata a yi yanda za a raya yaren ba zai zama na cewa kullun yawan shi yana raguwa masu amfani da shi musamman matasanmu suna raguwa ba.
Na gode Hawa. Mutane gani suke yi kamar social media kawai na ai gulma ne a ce malama hide my ID a ce abubuwa makamancin haka. But ko a learning which is online learning ba karamin kuɗi ake yi ba. Yanzu ni da na yi broke sai in kirkiro course ne kilan 10,000 and in kai advertising din shi it doesn't have to be me, it could be you. Kika zo kika kirkiro course ɗinki zaki a WhatsApp, in kika kawo talla Northern Hibiscus aka miki talla, in 100 people choose to do this course, that's ₦1 million. If you 1,000 people do it, that's ₦10 million. Kina zaune a gida. So people need to understand that. Akwai lokacin da Hilda Basi ta yi cost ɗinta, I think 50,000 ta yi charging ko? And I think 50,000 people joined, and she made almost 100 million. We can do this. And akwai Hausawa, you just need to understand me yan arewan suke so. Unfortunately, ba abin da zai kara musu kwakwalwa suke so ba. In kina so matan arewa su yi rubdugu akan abu, to ki yi magana aure, ko ki yi magana samari, ko ki yi maganar abubuwa. To in dai za ki yi wannan, yanzu da za ki fito da course na yadda za ki riƙe mijinki a tafin hannunki. I'm just trying to tell you that there is so much money. Kina zaune a cikin ɗakinki. You can make so much money, the content creation and social media. Very, very important. Social media ba kawai dan wasa bane ko dan shakatawa. You can make money, you can take care of your family. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Thank you.
Yes, you have. Okay, Mariam, coming to you, I would say like amfanin ki da yanar gizo. Mariam, yes. Oh, sorry, Rama. Amfanin ki da yanar gizo da kike yi, kuma da amfani da harshen Hausa. Da kai wani lokaci wanda kika yi amfani da yaran, kuma kaman a wani yanayi ne, yanayin karbuwa abin da kika samu wanda irin ba za ki iya mantawa da wannan content ɗin da kika yi creating ba. Yanayin yanda ya samu karbuwa.
Ina kokarin yin tunani in gani I think that Kamani, honestly, specifically, a lot of my content, I present as a Hausa girl. Okay. I present as a Northerner. Okay. I don't post ina, especially Yanangizu ina, a lot of times ina yi da turanci but cewa kila kasan cewa ba sallah kauyen mu zamu, and there's no shame in that. And kin gane irin, I live my life as an Arewa girl, as a Hausa girl, akwai abubuwan da muke, akwai al'adodinmu, and a lot of times I do educate. Now, because of these things, sai kiga ma abun mamaki, I think there was a time that a woman from Australia started reaching out to me because they say, it's kind of opened her into the life of the Arewa person. Everything, muka yi podcast with her, like, I think this was a few years ago, and everything. So it's that cikin abubuwan da nake yi, and it's just my day-to-day life, that gashi ni ga wadda nake, and this is where I'm from, and this is how I'm living, based on my beliefs and ethics and things like that. But I think in akwai wani kila akwai wanda ne kan dan kwali ma, which was so random, right? And it was a connection of naga ina zaune naga wani na daura rawani, and I was like, haka muke daura dan kwali actually, that concentration, that like it was so similar to daurin dan kwali, and so I decided to document rawanin shi da daurin dan kwalin da mata ke, and I just put them together, and it was like dan kwali all together. I remember somebody even commented, and I said namiji da dan kwali, but if you look at it, the principles were the same, like they were doing the same thing, and these all exist within Northern culture. Irin muna daura dan kwali, akwai maza masu daura rawani and everything, komai na da mahimmancin shi to each people differently. So yeah, things like that. I think mine is just an expression of who I am, and this is a huge part of who I am as well. So that shows in the way that I do my things and in the way that I interact with people. So
okay, Rama, I think Sadia, okay. Sadia Rama. Okay, so Rama, how do you think like the younger generation can be encouraged to be truly proud of how do you think like the younger generation can truly be encouraged to wholly accept Kingani like who they are, that to be authentic, take pride, Kingani in coming from the region and in speaking the language? Because over time, zaki ga wasu suma like za su kai wani level inda za su kaman kunya ma suke ji su magana da yaran, kuma ni a gani na wannan abun yana ba da gudunmawa wajen dakile da mutuwar yaran. So how do you think we can encourage the younger ones to take pride, in coming from this region and also speaking the language, to preserve it?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So I think the first thing I will say is for them to be like confident and actually be confident and believe in themselves that they matter. Like as an Arewa person, yende kuke, like who you are is enough.
Yeah.
Kin gane? Amma the second thing I would say is that in ki Hausa ko kuma kai Hausa in a place and mutun ya ce like sorry kai Turanci like you speak very well and somebody the first thing they say to you is that kai sannan kai like kai mixing the Hausa shin da man Bahaushe yake shin da man Sokoto yake. That is time for you to reevaluate your relationship with whomever that is. It is that time, that is the particular time you need to assess. So, but if you are keeping those types of people around you, you like confidence in reducing there, and you will not be taking, pride in who you are and what your culture stands for, and also just us being who we are. Like kamar da abunna malama ta ce. There are a lot of content creators coming up, like masu abunna suna karuwa, masu catering suna karuwa, masu suna wancan abunna wata yom sunanta I can't remember. She does incredible content creation kuma da Hausa. But my own issue is that why does it, like Zahra said, why is it that in abun bai kaman kauye muke ba? Why is it that it doesn't get a lot of interaction? Why is it that we are people that are living civilized? We are also here. So I think that's what I'm saying. Just who you are, like whomever you are, just know that you can put yourself out there, the Hausa. And other people are looking at you. The younger ones are actually looking at you, and they will emulate you, and they will know that will help them with their confidence. Mostly to the younger ones, especially when the suke tashi an gama secondary school ko kuma za a fara gama secondary school din nan. In suka fara abun nan kisan there's always that thing of if you put yourself out there too much, har dai muna da wannan abu in ka sa kanka out there too much da Hausa ba wanda ma zai aure ka, because they always use marriage as a weapon for you. So I just want them to know that Omo, you're going to be fine. No, last nobody cares, to be honest. Yeah. Just do you. Exactly who you are in Hausa, in whatever like facet of you, Bazamfara, whatever facet of you that kike like na Hausa, it is still part of you. And even me, it's a journey that I am on, actually learning to grow in myself in the Hausa culture of like accepting it. Because our people, like I said, I have a lot of grievances towards that. So it's a hate-love relationship. But I just want you to know, like, it's like you matter, and just keep putting yourself out there. Yeah. And inshallah, make it a sunnah. Your confidence will continue to increase. And social media is for you. Don't listen to anybody. There's money in it. There's a lot of work in it. It is a creative art. It's so important, and your voice matters. That's it, honestly.
Kuma,
I hope I've answered your question.
One thing I would add, Kuma, like, they should understand, Hausa in the digital space. She karan kanshi is a niche. In kika duba trajectory din matasan mu da have taken to it.
Yeah.
Yanzu kamar misali ga sunan a Instagram wanda suka yi taking it as a niche. In kika duba za ki ga international agencies sun zo za su yi program, kin gane, like kai din karan kanka you are sellable because abu ne suke nema kuma kai already wasu are running away from it. Za ki ga suna daukan ki kamar wata local, ana ganin ki kina Hausa ke wata malo ce ko wani abu, amma ba su san yanzu kalli one of our guests, one of the panelists takanas ta Kano fa ta baro Ingila ta zo Nigeria abinda take studying kenan. So kin ga like kai ka rena al'adanka ka rena culture ɗinka, kin gane. And you are trying to be somebody that ba fa za su taba accepting in ka ba. So be comfortable
in yourself and your own
and take pride
and take pride in it.
Yes,
honestly.
anywhere you are, be comfortable. I tell them like feel free to dress like Arewa Ingila. Wear your atampa and carry with pride. Kin gane? So like you on your own, that culture. Take pride in it and showcase it.
I actually want to add something to your point, because when you talk about international recognition and all of that, it is very important that you actually study your own culture. So I think a lot of us, we don't know what we have, because it's actually very, very beautiful what we have. We have an incredibly rich culture. Literally one of the first grant I ever got is for Kikiri grants. There's Jigawa, there's cave paintings in Jigawa, and literally that's what I got. I was paid like to just go and like do YouTube, like to film it and put it out there is as a project. Like they will see, because Jigawa State is definitely northern Nigeria. We have culture, we have cave paintings in Jigawa that are dating thousands of years back. So we are a rich culture. Like, understand your culture, know your culture, and take pride in it. And bro, we are going to. The sky is the limit, too, my dear. Inshallah.
Malama, space in the digital space in is very wide. Kina ganin Hausawan muna da buƙatar matasa mu a zaburar da su fito a ƙara yawa ko kina gari ana ƙoƙari in terms of content creation ana ƙoƙari ko ana da buƙata a ƙara zaburar da su don su fito a digital space ɗin nan ya zama na cewa ana taka rawar da su yanda ya kamata.
Kamar yadda kika ce da farko, space ɗin is so porous da ko yau kika fito zaki suna. Ba kamar Lagos bane ba da za a ce food content creators suna nan su miliyan. Mu ba mu da yawa. Kwanaki American Embassy reached out to me to say, shi yasa ne wannan post din. Na suna son a content creator Bahaushiya in the medical space, health space babu, political space babu. Sai sun je yanzu duk sun cike a girki. Gabaki ɗaya suna girki. Bayan akwai spaces kala-kala, activism babu. So dole akwai space kala-kala da matasa ya kamata su shigo.
Abinda suke so wanda zai ringa yi da yaran Hausa. Amma duk wanda muke da su, kin san ai da akwai su online. Yan arewa ne amma kuma content din nasu kamar na health da turanci suke delivery. Kenan ana da buƙatar wanda za su yi delivery da yaran Hausa? Okay.
Suna bukata saboda yanzu abin da suke so kamar yanzu za a yi abu kamar a Lagos da America sai kiga in an ce America sai kiga Lagos ne. To kamar sun farga suke so su yi abu a arewacin Nigeria. Just yesterday, the American ambassador was in the kitchen of one of the Hausa content creators in Sokoto. That is huge for us. Kuma ta yi Hausa take yi, Hausa ta ma Sakwatanci take yi. So akwai niche that is so porous. Ko yau kika fara zaki suna, ko yau kika fara brands, fast moving goods brands, so Onga, su Magi za su zo su baki kuɗi ki yi girki. Ki samu abin da za ki ci, ki samu abin da za ki ba wa iyayenki. Akwai it's a huge space. Amma aka ce wa 'yan arewa ku zo ku koyi abin nan so suke yi kawai ya zama sun yi yau gobe sun samu kuɗi. Dole sai ka zo ka nitsa ka koyi abu, ka jajirce. And then we need to sensitize commenters. Masu comment. Saboda ka dan zo da dan guntun confidence ɗinka, kana so ka yi wani zagi kwaya ɗaya sai ya durkusar da kai. So dole a yi sensitizing dukanmu 'yan social media to maybe take a week, 2 weeks of saying content that you do kake ganin kamar kayi ne don ka burge mutane yana affecting mutane a gida, mental health ɗinmu. Yanzu za ki ga zagi abu bai kai ya kawo ba sai ki ga an hada da uwarki da ubanki da kakanki ga baki daya an saka su bare sasan makeup irin wayannan mutanen. So you need to understand that yes, there is space, but we need to sensitize commenters. Ya zama na su san yadda suke yi saboda mutane su fito su ci abinci akan yanar gizo. Yes, thank you
very much. Okay, before we come to the last lap, Rama. Azu, before we got on stage, we were discussing with Aisha. Muke magana yadda kamar talla ne ko advert ne za a bada companies name, za a yi Hausan amma ba za a nemi Bahaushen da ya iya yayi ba. Muke magana yanzu kamar project ne za a yi. Sai kiga ba za a ba wanda ya san Hausar ya rubuta ba. Sai kiga an sa sunan da ke kanki baki san me ake rubutawa ba. So magana muke na Hausa in the digital space. Kina ganin cewa kamar irin masu su adverts din nan ba mi positioning kanmu ba ne, ko kuwa kamar tsuya ne from their part, ko kuma kawai yanda ake mana rukon sakainar kashi ne yasa ake mana haka. Do you think we need to position ourselves? We need to like communicate clearly that idan Hausar za a yi ta tsantsa, kin gane, for them to really go all out. And this is a huge market, this is a huge audience. If you're going to engage them, use the language the right way, use the language the proper way.
Ina ganin for me, and this is an issue I've had over the years, za ki ga movies haka ake yi talla ko radio ne kin gane zaki ji dan take ji wani murya irin wani Hausa, and I'm like really ina ganin ni kawai for me is bala'in renin wayo ne. Bala'in renin wayo ne, that's all that it is, because babu yanda za a yi kace, I always say refer to the map of Nigeria kaga fadin arewa in ba renin wayo ba kun tashi yin talla ku rasa ko bakin titi ku samu yaro ku ce mishi ya ake cewa gishiri ya gaya muku, sai ki ji like very odd pronunciations and everything. I think it's extreme laziness. It reflects on the people. It is not because we're not visible. It's the same conversation of why I'm surprised there's an English speaking northerner. It's just complete utter disrespect and laziness. There's nothing that we can do. The only way I think we can take ownership of this as a people is to show our might, and so to start calling them out. If you have all of the billions and millions of people that you say are our population, we should start calling it out. It's simply unacceptable. It is not possible. Kun tashi, kuna son ku yi talla, kuna son ku yi movie, ba ku samu wanda zai ga muku proper, like this is basic ethics. This is basic dignity, this is basic respect. And if you want to eat kudin mutum, dole ka je ka same shi da at least da hikima. Ko ba haka nan ba, lokacin nan kwanakin ba wannan, I'm sorry, I'm not, anyway, let me not even call her name, but there was a person that organizes trade fairs, take zuwa and everything like that, and she does like big trade fairs da sauransu. And lokacin da ta tashi zuwa cin kudin arewa, gele ta sa ta je ta sa, because you know that you would approach people with respect. In ko baka son kashi as the, in baka son aka ce baka shan roman shi, ko ba haka nan ba, you cannot say that you want to reap from my people, but you would disrespect them as well. There's not, the only thing that Iowa I feel needs to do is not a case of visibility, it's a case of calling those people out and actually letting them know that we see you and it is unacceptable. And we do have the numbers to back this up.
I want to add something, just a quick one now. Understanding the space of marketing. These big brands don't do their marketing themselves. They outsource to marketing agencies. Now the agencies soon matsalar until we stand. Kuma it's a cabal, unfortunately.
But whatever it is, whoever the gatekeepers are, if they know that we are also gatekeeping and we're saying that no,
I think what we might need to do is position ourselves in Lagos well. Now, fighting would not. Okay, so
it's not fighting. I wasn't talking about fighting.
I think I will have to come in at this point.
Yes.
Okay. I think we can continue this conversation backstage. For now, I will take questions.
I have something to add to this conversation.
1 minute.
Yeah, because I get where both are coming, but what I'm saying is that it's a different segue. Ko harkan influencer marketing. Akwai renin wayo sosai. Abunda suke biya in Lagos, but abunda suke biya mu kenan. So we also have to also talk within ourselves. Now we charging, because I have counterparts in Lagos, I have counterparts in other places. In Port Harcourt, it's not just Lagos, in different facets of Nigeria. Amma abunda suke ba su ba abunda za su ba mu bane in suka zo. So me yasa in ba wulakanci da renin wayo ba, and also because muna accepting abun. So
I agree with
that.
But Kumakin-san, from experience, what I will add is that it still goes back to how you position yourself.
There is that. There's positioning.
Like the value you put in yourself, how important you show you are, and how well they need you, your competence, your capacity, abunda suka san kina da shi, the value in you. If they truly need you, wala ko miliyan 100 kika ce musu. If they know,
exactly.
They know the impact you are going to make to them.
Exactly.
So constantly.
So that's why I think it had the mumuna the matsala. We have to come together and actually that no, we are not accepting this.
Yeah.
We are going to add this. Haga abunda muke ci abunda suke ba mu suke ba wa en Lagos haka za mu ma answer.
So it's a very huge space. The digital space is very huge. And Hausa language has a very important and critical role to play. The conversation, we can go on and on, but time factor. I'll throw the questions to the floor now. We're going to take only 3 before we wrap up. Okay, Halima 1, okay, 2, and the third person, Chairman. Okay. Halima. Oh, sorry.
Assalamu alaikum. So, naga an yi magana akan matsalar yadda mutanen ba sa engaging anything da zai kara musu ilimi, I mean skillful content and all. but we don't talk about solutions. Me yasa ba za mu duba ina matsalar take ba? Me yasa ba sa engaging da abin da zai kara musu ilimi? Why not look at the problems critically, find solutions, and start creating maybe infotainment, the edutainment content that that's engaging?
Okay.
That's my question. And the second one is, most of the times, za mu ce mutane ba sa engaging. The way we present the messages, I mean, yanayin da ake gabatarwa goes a long way to stimulate people. Mun san cewa a wannan zamani attention span din is very short. Gajere ne sosai. So me za mu iya yi wajen tabbatar da cewa in the first few seconds din da zaka gabatar da anything an ja attention din mutane to be able to stick true, and there should be suspense in between to make sure they stick true. What should we do? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. My name is Osman Hussaini. I'm from Katsina State. So mine is comment and question. Kamar yanzu a digital space da muke, idan ka zo wanda ka ambata nan cikin ku za a ce an san su a social media. So akwai wani abu da nake ta tunani sometimes zaka ga idan mutum ya zama ya zama wani abu haka a social media bai samu ma time ko da wani ya mai comment ya zo ko da liking ne. Idan ba zan manta ba ko wani politician a Kano idan aka mai comment 100 ko 1000 wallahi kusa da ne notice sai ya biya ma kowa liking. Wannan abun na motivating ya ga cewa na yi mawa ne comment ya yi liking ina, so ba ma wai irin mu kaɗai ba nan wurin, so yana sa dan ƙara abin a fitin ɗin shi inda irin media influencers ɗin nan wannan abun na taimakawa. Ni kana ba zan manta ba na taɓa ma wani comment, negative comment na yi, amma reply din da ya zo ya mani sai ne sauyi na goge na bishi na ba.
Ko ne ashe?
Yes, ko it's not abin da sa na ce negative comment yayi empowerment ne, irin ya taba wani wuri bai taba wani wuri ba. To na zo ne ina challenge din shi ban kalli cewa shi ba ma'aikacin gwamnati bane ba politician bane ba yayi ne. Kawai an san da ya bani kan cewa to ai shi ba da yake da mukamin gwamnati ba kuma iya yankin shi zai iya taba. To kin ga ba wai nayi irin abin bane ba wannan, to kin ga amma wannan comment din da ya man na ji daɗi, ya bi ni private ne mai magana muka yi sanjin contact ta dalili na sai da ya taimaki wasu. Wannan shine kenan. Abu na biyu kuma da nake son dan ƙara irin like ni ya faru a kaina, kamar yadda na dan bada misali ina amfani da social media, sai na ce to bari in amfani da shi in yi business. Sannan na shiga TikTok kawai sai na je na duba page din Murja Kunya, sai na tagin ɗinta sai na ce mata ki ji tsoron Allah zan maki nasiha. Abin da ta fara zuwa farko da yawa sun sani nan, ka jira in daga ita sai wani ɗan riga ka jira in fito wanka, kai a comrade to zaka san wace ce ni. Kafin ka ce mi wallahi yanzu post din na in ka shiga ina Usman Rafuka shine wanda ya fi kowanne like da comment din nan. So a lokacin sai na samu kusan da na fara TikTok sai na samu follow kusan 4,000 da wani abu. Daga na ce zan mata nasiya sai na dawo da kaina na ce a ki hakuri kin fi ƙarfi na waye. So na mai da ba. So kaga na amfani da wannan. To ina cikin nazari ga sada malfashi na cikin wanda ya taimaka. Yanzu magana da nake kilo sun sha ina. Sai kawai na ce to ba siyasa kaɗai zan rika tallata 'yan siyasa ba a page ina, sai na fara sana'ar shayi. Ga aboki na abu ce manye ƙarya kake ba ka iya sai da shayi, na ce Allah ko da na zo ne package ɗin abin sosai na sa suna paste saboda akwai mento na Mustapha Shehu, kin san shi yana ce man kullum ka fara sanin meye sunan abin da zaka yi shi zai tallata kasuwanka, sai na ce Tea Palace, Tea World. A social media sai na ga an fura ja a kan in yi Tea Palace masarautar shayi. So yanzu dai abin alhamdulillah ga yau har na zo taro mai mahimmanci mai girma irin hibab.
To yanzu dai Malam Hausa ka yi amfani da Murja Kunya, ka samu strategy, ka samu followers. So Allah ya karo kasuwan shayi za mu ce. Chairman, we'll close with you and then we'll wrap up this session, please.
Thank you very much. So na dan addition ne, akwai abin da na yi picking guda biyu a maganganu da aka yi. Akan wannan harkan fassaran da wani abin da ya kamata a ba Hausawa waɗanda suke jin Hausa sai a ba wani daban. Malama ta yi maganan a yi amfani da diplomas, a yi positioning kai shine maslaha, while su sun yi maganan a bit of hard approach da sauransu. So for me akan wannan ne nake so in yi magana. Gaskiya akwai mutanen da ba sa jin soft approach. A harkar security akwai abin da ake kira hard approach da soft approach. Waɗannan tsagirin abin da yake faruwa wani lokaci ba za ka zo ka roƙe su da Allah da annabi ba za su ji ba. sai ka ba su wuta, idan ka mika musu hannu a yi sulhu da gudu za su zo dan dole. So abin da nake magana shine wani abu ya faru, akwai Sada, akwai Salma, akwai ire-iren wannan abin da aka yi aka ba waɗanda ba su deserving ba, suka gani a social media, da suka fara cakansu ba a yi mintuna nawa ba aka yi message, ina ga ko invitation ne to Salma ko Sada ne, there was an invitation immediately and they corrected wannan abin da ya faru. So ni ina ganin yes, it's good me positioning kanmu, amma ni abu biyu na yadda da shi, na yadda da hard approach, na yadda da soft approach. Yanda za ka yi amfani da shi shine yake da mahimmanci. Idan ka je inda za ka yi hard